There it is. All right, welcome all. Before we get started, I'm going to share a quick agenda, just what's going to happen in the next hour and what we're going to cover. And then we'll do a question of the day. If you feel so inclined to go off mute and share it, it's up to you. But if you want to share your answer in the chat, please do so. But we'll do that in just a sec. Right now we're going to go over the agenda. We're not going to do breakout groups. We'll do question of the day, which we typically do at SJPLA. You'll learn a little bit about Kelly and myself. Hi, Kelly. You'll learn more about Social Justice Partners Los Angeles in case this is your first time joining us ever. We'll give an overview of the Racial Equity and Homelessness Initiative, and then specifically the Racial Equity Fellowship. Learn more details. What are the supports that go with the fellowship? What's the eligibility that goes with the fellowship? I'll go into some of the details of the selection process and the timeline so you know what to expect. And then we'll open it up for FAQs, and then Kelly will lead us in kind of a discernment process. So that's the general gist of this agenda. And we'll try to make sure that we end right at 1 or hopefully right before that. So all that to say, question of the day. We like doing question of the day in every meeting at SJP. And if you participate in the fellowship, we do it every time we have a session. So the question today is, what do you wish you spent more time doing 5 years ago? What do you wish you spent more time doing 5 years ago? Go ahead and add that in the chat, or if you are brave enough to go off mute, feel free. I will say mine, and this might be really odd, but I'm going to say it anyways. I wish 5 years ago I was breathing through my nose more and breathing slower. As an asthmatic and somebody who has sleep apnea, I'm learning about the power and benefits of breathing, specifically through your nose. And I'm such a mouth breather that I wish I would have done it 5 years ago. Get the party started. All right. Kelly, do you want to share anything or do you want to add it in the chat? It's up to you.
I was thinking about body stuff too, of course. I was like, I wish I had started stretching like 5 years ago or sitting up straight. Like, I say that because I'm like hunched on my computer right now. But yeah, so it's never too late. We can start new things all the time.
I'm seeing exercising for sure, being more involved in community, collecting my hours, LOL, working out. Yeah, a lot of exercise stuff. So appreciate that, everyone. All right, we'll go into a quick introduction. Kelly, if you want to kick things off, I'm going to stop sharing here.
I'm so excited for y'all to go to all the places. And yes, actually to be more consistent. That is the dream. I'm Kelly Poole. I use she, her pronouns. I get the pleasure of leading our racial equity initiative here at Social Justice Partners. I've worked in housing and homelessness for almost 12 years. So I started as an employment specialist at Chrysalis, and then did some program management, worked at United Way, which is where Frank and I met, and then worked for the Department of Health Services. And so I've had a long career of service provision and just doing work in different ways to help end homelessness here in Los Angeles. And now I spend most of my time working and thinking about people and how we can support the workforce to do good things and to feel supported so that we can do the work that we do every day. So I am here at SJP and I get to do really cool work with Frank, like running these fellowships. So excited to share more with you all today. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Hi, everyone. My name is Frank Romero Crockett. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the program manager in the Racial Equity and Homelessness Initiative at SJP. Been here for about 2 years, and before that, around 5-6 years at United Way of Greater LA. I worked on the Everyone In campaign, so did a lot of policy advocacy, comms, organizing work. Super fun, lots of stress. And then before that, actually worked at other kind of fellowship programs, Coro of Southern California. I'm an alumni myself. And then I led some off-campus undergraduate programs here in LA where I connected students with different nonprofits in the city. So nonprofits have been all a part of my life. I'm super excited to be here at SJP, to be working on these fellowships, racial equity, and also Hilton. And yeah, excited for you all to learn more about us. Which, speaking of, who is SJP? SJP, our mission, I'll just give you our mission, is to invest in, expand, and connect communities advancing racial and social justice. We like to create a space and community for allies striving for collective liberation through different partner engagements, healing spaces, and anti-racist learning. We have a very collaborative shared leadership model to move and redistribute wealth and power in service of justice. And we do, specifically with the fellowships, provide training and space for peer learning and reflection. A lot of our racial equity fellowship is a lot of community building, reflection time, breathing, speaking of breath. Some of the programs that you might know that we do outside of the Racial Equity and Homelessness Initiative, we have our Systems Change Accelerator program working with different EDs at startup organizations, our Healing Justice and Community Care courses and monthly sessions. We have our Anti-Racism for White People sessions that is led by our Executive Director, Christine Margiata, and Liberatory Workplace Culture trainings. But the Racial Equity Initiative team is just Kelly and I. Yeah, but one thing to note is that for SJP, we are not a housing provider, nor are we a service provider. Community is really at the heart of what we do, really trying to work with different organizations, leaders, people to really bring community care, liberation into the workplace, so that way we could do this work with all energy. So a little bit about us. I'm going to pass it to Kelly to talk about the initiative and this fellowship.
Thanks, Frank. So I'll just do a quick overview. Some of you may already know this, so forgive me if you're having to listen to it again, but we, the Racial Equity and Homelessness Initiative at SJP really is about people and about the workforce, as Frank was sharing. So we know that ending homelessness takes a lot of effort and a lot of resources. And we also know that the way those resources get to our community members is through people. It's through the case managers and the program managers and the leaders of the nonprofit service providers that deliver services every day. And so this initiative is really about sort of answering the question, how can we better support and invest in the people that work in our sector every day? So we do that in three primary ways. We think about recruiting new folks into the sector. That is done through sharing the word about job openings and trying to really position the organizations in the homeless services sector as like employers of choice. We run the Policy and Systems Change Fellowship. There's, Frank will tell you more about that, but that fellowship and this stream of work is really about bringing new folks into the sector. And then we run programs and support existing leaders in the sector to lead with the lens of racial equity and really the ability to think deeply about sort of structural issues that have created the challenge of homelessness that we're living in today. We provide supports for folks in the sector through our Healing Justice work, whether it's the monthly wellbeing series or through community care sessions. And then finally, we think about how do we retain all of the wonderful people that work in this sector every day. And we work there sort of at the systemic level. So we are working to understand issues of wages and think about what it means to actually pay a living wage in LA County, how much that would cost us. We try to get cash out to workers anytime we have the chance. So we've run a few rounds of frontline worker stipends. We'll be running some well-being grants later this year. And then I think Frank mentioned that we work with a group of executive directors to think about what policies and practices they can change within their organizations to better support workers and people. So we have a lot going on here. We love all of it. And this fellowship is one of the core parts of it. So I'll tell you just a little bit about the fellowship and then Frank can get into the details. So the Racial Equity Fellowship is for current leaders in the homelessness response sector. So these are individuals who you already work in the sector. and you are aspiring to executive leadership. So you can see yourself being a chief program officer one day, or a chief executive officer, a CEO, an ED. And it really is time to create space for individual introspection and to get grounded in leadership. So many professional development programs and leadership programs are centered in what you need to do to get better and how you can improve and what skills you need to learn. And we think that skilling up is important, but what's more important is really getting a chance to come down and connect and be centered, and sort of have a safe space that's not the constant emotional and physical drain of our jobs. So we create a cohort of folks who are connected, all leaders of colors. There's opportunities for leaders of color who work in the sector, to really just be honest about the challenges of leadership and what it means to work to end homelessness every day. We learn things together. So we explore big concepts that I think now are being talked about in our sector, but often we don't have time to process, colonization and structural racism and what it means to, sort of run a system that's steeped in capitalism. Those are big words, but what do they mean? And so we work together with the fellows who themselves are impacted by systemic injustice and think about how do we develop accountability amongst ourselves as a group of fellows to be committed to a new vision of ending homelessness. And we don't try to solve things, like we don't end the fellowship with an action and something we're going to go out and do, but we rather try to get on the same page about a deeper analysis of what it means to end homelessness and commit to being an accountable community with each other throughout the rest of our careers. So it's a really great space. Frank will tell you a little more about sort of the eligibility and really who the fellowship's for.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. And before we get into that, especially for many of you who've seen that we're launching the selection process for 2 fellowships at the same time. We have our Hilton Foundation Fellowship and then Racial Equity Fellowship. I wanted to take a minute to go through the distinctions of both, just so it's super clear. And just heads up, if you wanted to apply to both, you totally can. But here are some of the distinctions. 1, do you have to quit your job for the Hilton Foundation Fellowship? Yes, you do. You have to quit your current job and then commit to a 2-year paid full-time position as an independent contractor in the public sector. Racial Equity Fellowship, you don't have to quit your job. You could stay at your current job. It's just committing to monthly sessions together with a few events here and there. Current role for Hilton Fellowship, you are a frontline worker. You have direct service experience. Perhaps you're a direct service program manager. For Racial Equity Fellowship, currently, you are in the mid to senior role, manager, director, even vice president, aspiring to go into executive C-suite positions. Years of work for the Hilton Foundation Fellowship, 3 to 5 years plus. Racial Equity, 5 to 7 years. Again, time commitment for Hilton is 2 years full-time, and you have quarterly sessions. So every 3 months or so, we have about a 2-hour session. And then for Racial Equity, 9 months, and every month we have a monthly session, third Thursday. Stipend for Hilton is $85,000 per year, paid on a semi-monthly basis. And then for the Racial Equity Fellowship, you'll get $2,500 one-time direct payment to yourself, not reimbursed, just directly to you. I think that payment's like around November or December. So those are some of the high-level distinctions between the 2 fellowships. Again, you could apply for one or both if you like, depending on your situation. Before I get into these supports, just wanted to see if anyone had one quick question before I get into a little bit more details on the fellowship. Okay. Oh, I gotta go through this again. What? Oh my gosh. Okay. Supports for Racial Equity Fellowship. Again, one-time $2,500 unrestricted stipend paid directly. Each fellow will have an opportunity to receive executive coaching. We give each of the fellows a small budget to work with a coach, probably get professional headshots. If you want to do skills training, you could use some of our money for that. You'll have an opportunity to kind of work and craft your own, we say personal leadership narrative, your identity, basically branding. How do you make yourself more visible in the sector? What is it that you want to communicate? Who are you? We help you craft that. And lastly, again, we have half-day sessions every third Thursday of the month from 12 to 4. Eligibility for the program, and I'll get into the selection process. But if you meet these 5 minimum eligibility, then we'll invite you to apply. But 1, you must identify as BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, or person of color. 2, you must currently hold a mid to senior level management position with 5 to 7 years of experience. Now, that doesn't mean 5 to 7 years of managerial director experience, but total experience, maybe you've been a manager or director for a year plus. Must work at an organization or agency within LA County's homeless response sector. You have a track record of impact in your organization and or within the sector. And then last, of course, you must attend all fellowship sessions in that third Thursday chunk. So that's a little bit about the supports and eligibility. I'll pause there. Kelly, if there's anything else that you want to add, and we could open it up to a few questions.
No, you did a great job.
Yeah.
If folks have questions.
Any questions at all about these points? No? Okay, I'll go over timeline. So the eligibility form is out right now. Some of you might have already filled that out. It's a really short form. Probably would take nowhere between like 5 to 10 minutes to complete. We do it in chunks. Eligibility form first. Folks who meet the 5 eligibility requirements will invite you to apply. That invitation will go out at the end of this month, March 29th. You'll receive an invitation to apply. And then you'll have another 4 weeks or so to submit your application, which would include some narrative questions and a few boxes, few short texts. But that's about it. After you submit your application, SJP will review those apps, and then we will invite around 24 to 30 applicants to our finalist workshop. We have 1 of 2. We put them on different days and different weeks, just depending on your work schedule or if you're taking some time off. Our first finalist workshop is on May 10th, 11 to 2 p.m. And then we have one 2 weeks later on May 25th from 9 to 12 p.m. That's our finalist workshop. In order to be considered for the fellowship, you will have to attend one of those 2 finalist workshops. Along in this workshop, we also have some alumni and some partners of SJP also participating in the workshops. And then last but not least, the announcement notification if you are accepted into the fellowship will be roughly around the end of June, maybe mid-June. So yeah, pretty cut and dry. Any questions about the selection process at all? Sounds good. All right. Kelly, I'm going to pass it to you for FAQs. We can go over through some of these, but if there's any ones that you want to highlight.
Sure. I think I'll just say, based on what Frank was sharing, to really spend some time with the timelines, what's on the website, just to make sure that you can be available, for those workshops that Frank mentioned, and a couple of the other key dates. If it doesn't work for you this year, I know some folks are in school or they have current commitments. That's okay. We're going to run it again next year. We'll probably do this again in the fall. So just make sure that you're really noting those, because those are the pieces that really aren't flexible. So hopefully those dates will work for you. You can apply for both fellowships. If you, after looking, hearing what Frank shared, looking at the website, we'll have this recording up so you can watch it again. Hopefully there's a really clear distinction about which one is the better fit for you. I think they're for people at different levels in their career. So hopefully it makes sense, but if you're still torn, you could apply for both. How would you define a track record of impact in your organization or within the sector? So we say within the sector because it's we encourage folks to think broadly about their work to end homelessness. So if you got your bachelor's in sociology and you did an internship at a nonprofit and then you're a case manager and now you're managing programs, like that's a pretty substantial track record of impact. So it's not just about, oh, have I been a director or all of that, but have you consistently had time working to end homelessness? And are you currently working at an organization now? BIPOC or BIPOC or Black, Indigenous, people of color. So so anyone who identifies as a person of color is eligible to apply. If you're at a smaller nonprofit, yes, you can still apply. So we're not size, we're size agnostic in the fellowship. Just again, working at a nonprofit in LA County. So the bottom answer would be no. Unfortunately, this is limited to folks who are currently working at organizations in LA County. So if any size, and then any type. So we know there are a lot of advocacy organizations and policy partners, that counts. Foundations, philanthropy, that counts. Case managers, CBOs, direct service providers, the housing developers. So sort of the span, all of those partners count. Yeah. So people are always like, how do I know if this is right for me? Like, what's the catch? And so I always think that having some good discernment questions or some good guiding questions can be helpful. So these are three that we encourage folks to reflect on. Do you feel called to executive leadership? Sometimes when we work in the sector, it's like, not like, I'm cool. I kind of want to manage some programs and be closer to the frontline work and do my thing. That fills me up. That brings me joy. And I don't really want to go through the stress of advancing to executive leadership. And then sometimes there are those folks who are like, I want to be an executive leader, but I don't even know what that means, what it looks like. I'm not sure, but I know like deep within me that I'm supposed to do more, or not do more, but do different work. And so if you feel called to executive leadership, being an executive director, a chief program officer, a VP, any of those things, then this probably feels like the right fit. So that's sort of the exploration level that we look at in the program. Do you have a personal commitment to racial equity and justice? So this is obviously, it's a racial equity fellowship. That's the core of the fellowship. And this commitment looks like, obviously understanding and acknowledging the racial sort of legacy of harm that has led to our current day conditions of homelessness. Even if you're like, I don't know all of those words and all of those things, that's okay. But do you have a commitment to thinking critically about racial equity as it relates to housing and homelessness? And then do you want to work within the system to affect change? And we asked this question because the fellowship, I think this one and certainly the Hilton policy and systems change one are really about using your positionality within the sector to advance change. So it's not really like, you're like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur and I kind of want to like start my own nonprofit. You're probably not going to get the right level of support or value from these fellowships. This is for folks who are like, hey, I've built my career or want to continue building my career in the sector. I want to be supportive, in a supportive community to do that and strengthen like relationships and partnerships. So think about, do you want to work, within sort of the homeless response sector to affect change? Those are the questions that I think are helpful for folks. Frank, I don't know if there are, any other questions or just other things that folks should consider as they're thinking about applying.
I'll just add one caveat with, do you feel called to executive leadership? Do you feel called to be an executive director, but maybe are not excited about the work environment in which an executive director or CEO is within the sector? Still consider applying, because those are the big questions that we're asking of, like, does a CEO ED within the homeless response sector in LA County have to be this way? Like, can we look at different models in which a person could be the top leader at an organization or agency within the sector. So yeah, you might be like, I want to be CEO, but not like this. I'm not trying to like, yes, make a lot of money, but work just crazy hours and have to do it all. We're exploring like different shared leadership models that we could start enacting in the next couple of years. Hopefully that takes on, but yeah. Maybe it'll be nice to just hear from you all. For the first question, do you feel called to executive leadership? Whatever that means for you, is this something that is kind of within you that you are interested in pursuing, aspiring to? Programs.
Yes. So we, Frank will share his screen, but I say this every time. So those of you that have met me or heard this before, like professional development is so important to me, and I think so important to us as leaders. So if either of our fellowships aren't the right fit for you, or you're not selected this round, please don't, give up. These are a number of fellowships that we know of. These are not linked, but I would say take a screenshot and Google them. And on a good day, I would say, we'll send you the links, but inboxes are full right now. So take a screenshot. Look, the Atlantic Fellows for Racial Equity is it's actually an international fellowship. It's like some South African folks and some folks from the US who think large scale about equity and injustice. The Solis Policy Institute used to be WPI, so the Women's Policy Institute. So they do state policy stuff. Los Angeles African American Women's Public Policy Institute, LAPI, it's one of my favorite things, of course, because I'm an alumni. So it is for African American women who sort of want to be on the elected official track. It's really great. Hope Latina is, I think, the sort of Latinx version of LAPI. So it's for folks who want to think about elected office. And then Coro Southern California, Frank is, a former colleague there, and they run, I think, 4 or 5 programs now. They have like women in leadership, they have a workforce one, they just started a housing and homelessness one. So they have really, really good programs as well. And there are probably plenty more that you all know about, so share them with us, but just wanted to offer this also as a resource.
Love it. Thanks, Kelly. Well, that is it. I mean, we don't have any more to share. That's unless you all have some questions. I'm going to put up our email. If you email racialequity@sjpla.org, it'll come to both of us. But that's about it. I'm about to play some music. But if you have a pressing question, we'd love to chat. If anyone has any questions. Well, hopefully us describing this fellowship gives you a good picture. Again, we shared a little bit about the Hilton Fellowship. Both of the eligibility forms are due on the same date, which is March 24th. So you have a few more weeks to fill that out. But we hope to see your eligibility form, and hopefully we can invite you to apply right after that. All right. Appreciate your time.